The crimson haze of Kalian's twin suns painted the battlefield in a surreal glow as Captain Elias Valen surveyed the chaos unfolding before him. The human warrior, clad in battered armor etched with the scars of countless battles, stood amidst the remnants of his strike team. The alien jungle around them pulsed with bioluminescent life, its flora responding to the violence with an eerie symphony of colors that danced across the canopy. Elias's breath came in ragged gasps, each inhalation burning his lungs with the planet's thick, oxygen-rich atmosphere. His plasma rifle hung loosely in his grip, its power cells nearly depleted after hours of relentless combat against the hive creatures that had ambushed their mission. The ground beneath his boots was slick with iridescent blood, both theirs and his fallen comrades. The air carried the metallic tang of battle mixed with the sweet, sickening scent of alien vegetation. Through the chaos, Elias's tactical mind worked furiously. They had been sent to retrieve ancient artifacts from the ruins deep within this jungle, relics that could potentially turn the tide in humanity's desperate struggle for survival in this sector of space. But now, with most of his team dead or dying, the mission seemed doomed. The hive creatures, with their chitinous bodies and razor-sharp limbs, had adapted perfectly to this environment, using the dense foliage as natural cover while they picked off his people one by one. A sudden movement caught his eye, not from the creatures, but something different. Something regal. From the shadows of the massive trees emerged a figure that made Elias's breath catch in his throat. She moved with a fluid grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics, her every step radiating power and control. Her form was humanoid yet distinctly alien, with skin that shimmered like liquid mercury under the twin sun's light. Standing at least 7 feet tall, she possessed an athletic build that spoke of immense strength without sacrificing elegance. Her eyes, those piercing multifaceted orbs, locked onto Elias with an intensity that made his combat-hardened nerves tingle. They weren't just looking at him, they were seeing through him, reading his very soul. A crown of crystalline structures adorned her head, pulsing with an inner light that matched the rhythm of the jungle's bioluminescence. Her presence commanded attention, silencing even the constant hum of alien insects that had filled the air moments before. The hive creatures, which had been relentlessly pursuing Elias and his team, suddenly froze in their tracks. One by one, they lowered their weapons, if such primitive appendages could be called weapons, and backed away with unmistakable deference. Elias watched in stunned silence as these terrifying predators, responsible for the deaths of his entire squad, retreated into the shadows like frightened animals. "Human," her voice resonated through the clearing, bypassing his ears to vibrate directly in his chest. It wasn't loud, yet it carried an authority that made his knees want to buckle. "You have fought well against overwhelming odds. Your species continues to surprise me." She took a step forward, each movement deliberate and measured, like a predator assessing its prey. "I am Queen Sylvaris of the Kalian Collective, ruler of this world and its inhabitants." Elias's training kicked in, forcing him to maintain his stance despite the overwhelming presence before him. He tightened his grip on his rifle, though he knew it would be useless against whatever powers this being commanded. "Your Majesty," he managed to say, his voice steadier than he felt. "We mean no disrespect to your domain. We were merely—" "I know why you are here," she interrupted, her words cutting through his explanation like a blade. "The artifacts you seek belong to my people's ancient history. But I care little for relics of the past." She circled him slowly, her gaze never wavering. "What interests me is the present moment. The way you've conducted yourself in battle. The choices you've made when faced with certain death." Her proximity sent shivers down his spine, though whether from fear or something else entirely, he couldn't determine. There was an energy emanating from her, a palpable force that made the air crackle with electricity. "You humans are peculiar creatures," she continued, stopping directly in front of him. "So fragile, yet capable of such remarkable resilience. So violent, yet driven by complex emotions and ideals." Elias swallowed hard, feeling completely exposed under her scrutiny. Her presence wasn't just physical. It was as if she was probing deeper, seeking truths he hadn't even acknowledged himself. "My warriors fell protecting me," he said, his voice gaining strength. "They trusted me to lead them. I won't dishonor their sacrifice by submitting to anyone." Sylvaris tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Ah, there it is. That spark of defiance. The refusal to yield even when all hope seems lost. She reached out a hand, her fingers hovering inches from his face. But tell me, human warrior, what do you fight for? What makes you continue to stand when all others have fallen? Her question struck a nerve deeper than any physical blow could have. Memories of home flashed before his eyes, Earth's blue skies, the laughter of children in the colony's courtyard, the faces of his fallen comrades throughout years of service. I fight because someone has to, he responded, his voice thick with emotion. Because giving up means letting darkness win. Because even in the face of impossible odds, we keep moving forward. For the first time, Silvaris's expression shifted, revealing something akin to approval. Interesting, she murmured, taking a step back. Very interesting indeed. She raised her arms, and the jungle around them responded, vines retreating and flowers blooming in vibrant patterns that formed a natural throne behind her. In all my centuries of rule, I've never encountered a human quite like you. Elias remained rooted to the spot, his mind racing to process the situation. This wasn't how the mission was supposed to go. He should be dead, or captured, or worse. Instead, he found himself facing judgment from an alien queen whose power seemed absolute, yet who showed an unexpected interest in his mere existence. You speak of strength, Silvaris continued, her voice taking on a more formal tone. Let us see if your actions match your words. She gestured to the clearing around them, where the surviving hive creatures now formed a perfect circle. Prove to me your worth, human warrior. Show me why your species deserves to walk among the stars. As Elias looked around at the assembled creatures and back at the alien queen, he realized this confrontation was far from over. In fact, it might be just beginning. The weight of her challenge settled heavily upon him, carrying implications he couldn't yet comprehend. Whatever happened next would define not just his fate, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and this powerful alien civilization. The jungle transformed around them as Silvaris's power manifested in waves of shimmering energy. The ground trembled beneath Elias's feet, not with seismic force but with a living vibration that seemed to pulse through every fiber of the ecosystem. Before his eyes, the clearing morphed into an arena of sorts, not constructed, but grown organically from the surrounding forest. Towering trees bent and twisted to form natural walls, their branches interweaving to create a dome overhead that filtered the twin suns' light into shifting patterns of gold and crimson. Queen Silvaris ascended her floral throne, her movements causing ripples of color to cascade through the arena's living architecture. Human warrior, she declared, her voice echoing with resonance that seemed to harmonize with the jungle itself. Your test will be threefold. First, you must demonstrate physical prowess against my champion. At her gesture, a massive creature emerged from the shadows, a hybrid of feline grace and reptilian power, its scales glinting like polished obsidian. Its eyes burned with intelligence as it prowled around the arena's perimeter. But brute strength alone is meaningless without wisdom, she continued, standing to reveal a second transformation occurring beneath her throne. The ground split open to reveal a crystalline puzzle structure, its facets refracting light into intricate patterns that constantly shifted and changed. This construct contains the essence of our collective knowledge. You must decipher its secrets to proceed. Elias's mind raced as he assessed the challenges before him. The creature's muscles rippled with barely contained power, its claws leaving shallow trenches in the earth as it stalked him. The puzzle structure, meanwhile, seemed to mock him with its ever-changing complexity. Yet it was the third element of the trial that truly unsettled him. The queen herself, watching with those penetrating eyes that seemed to strip away every layer of pretense. You misunderstand me, warrior, Silvaris said, clearly reading his thoughts. This is not merely a test of strength or intellect. It is a test of character. How you choose to face these challenges will reveal more about you than any victory or defeat. She extended her hand, and the air between them shimmered with potential energy. Will you attack recklessly, relying on your military training? Or will you find another path? The obsidian beast let out a low growl, its tail lashing with controlled aggression. Elias knew that in conventional combat terms, he stood little chance against such a formidable opponent. His plasma rifle might wound it, but not before it closed the distance and ended him with those massive claws. The puzzle structure offered no immediate salvation either, Its shifting patterns defied traditional problem-solving approaches. Yet as he met Silvaras's gaze, something clicked in his understanding. The Queen wasn't simply testing his abilities, she was challenging his fundamental nature. Every decision he made, every action he took, would be scrutinized not just for its effectiveness, but for what it revealed about his character. Did he value brute force or strategic thinking? Would he prioritize personal survival or honor his fallen comrade's memory? The arena itself seemed alive with anticipation, the bioluminescent plants pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The air grew heavier, charged with the same electric tension he'd felt before crucial battles. But this was different. There were no clear enemies, no defined objectives beyond proving himself worthy. The rules of engagement existed only in the Queen's enigmatic statements and the silent communication between her and her realm. Elias's tactical mind began processing possibilities. The puzzle structure might hold answers, but engaging it first could leave him vulnerable to the creature's attack. Conversely, focusing solely on the beast might trigger some unknown defense mechanism within the arena itself. And throughout it all, Silvaras's presence loomed large, her every word and gesture carrying layers of meaning he struggled to interpret. "This is madness," he muttered under his breath, earning a subtle smile from the Queen. Madness, perhaps, but also opportunity, to prove not just his strength, but his adaptability, his ability to think beyond conventional warfare. As he adjusted his stance, preparing for whatever came next, he realized that this trial wasn't about defeating opponents or solving puzzles. It was about demonstrating what it meant to be human in the face of the unknown. The obsidian beast chose that moment to charge, its massive form blurring through the arena with impossible speed. Elias reacted instinctively, diving to the side as claws raked the air where he'd stood. But instead of reaching for his weapon, he focused on the creature's movements, noting how its attacks created disturbances in the arena's energy field. Each swipe caused the bioluminescent plants to flare in warning, creating a pattern that synchronized with the puzzle structure's shifting facets. "Do you see?" Silvaras's voice cut through the chaos, calm amid the storm. "The answer lies in understanding, not destruction." Her words triggered a realization in Elias. The arena was a single, interconnected system. The puzzle wasn't separate from the beast. They were elements of the same challenge. He rolled to avoid another strike, this time positioning himself closer to the crystalline structure. The creature's next attack forced him to scramble backward, but as he moved, he noticed something extraordinary. The puzzle's shifting patterns weren't random. They mirrored the beast's movements, almost as if predicting its attacks. His military training screamed at him to counterattack, to use his plasma rifle to disable the threat. Yet Silvaras's earlier words echoed in his mind. This was a test of character, not just combat ability. Ducking under another swipe, Elias made a calculated decision. He holstered his weapon and approached the puzzle structure, trusting his instincts despite the danger. The beast roared in apparent frustration, circling him with increasing aggression. As he placed his hands on the crystalline surface, a surge of information flooded his senses. Not just visual patterns, but emotional impressions, memories of battles fought and lives lost. "The connection grows stronger," Silvaras observed, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction. "You're beginning to understand that true strength lies not in dominance, but in harmony." The puzzle's facets began aligning with his touch, responding to his thoughts rather than physical manipulation. Each successful alignment caused the arena's energy field to stabilize, gradually calming the agitated plants and even affecting the beast's behavior. The creature's attacks became less frenzied, more measured, as if recognizing the changing dynamic. Elias realized he wasn't fighting an enemy so much as participating in a complex ritual of mutual understanding. Through the puzzle's interface, he accessed fragments of Kalian history, their evolution from predatory species to enlightened civilization, the sacrifices made to achieve peace with their environment. His hands moved faster now, guided by intuition rather than conscious thought. The puzzle's patterns revealed deeper truths about the Kalian collective society, their philosophy of balance between strength and wisdom. Each solution brought new insights, showing him how their technology wasn't built to conquer nature but to enhance it. The arena itself was proof of this principle, a living construct that responded to genuine understanding rather than brute force. The obsidian beast paused in its circling, regarding him with intelligent eyes that reflected comprehension rather than hostility. Elias understood now. The creature wasn't his opponent, but a partner in this trial. Its role was to push him, to force revelations that might otherwise remain hidden. The real challenge wasn't to defeat it, but to integrate its nature with his own through the medium of the puzzle. As the final pieces of the puzzle aligned, the arena underwent a profound transformation. The bioluminescent plants burst into brilliant bloom, their light harmonizing with the crystalline structure's glow. The beast stepped closer, lowering its massive head in what could only be interpreted as respect. Sylvaris rose from her throne, her expression unreadable but her eyes shining with an intensity that made Elias's heart race. "You've shown remarkable insight," she acknowledged, descending the steps of her throne. "Few grasp the true nature of our trials so quickly." Her approach caused the entire arena to resonate with power, as if the very fabric of reality bent to her will. But understanding is only the beginning. Implementation requires courage of a different kind. Elias stood at the nexus of the arena's energies, the puzzle structure still humming beneath his palms. He felt connected to everything around him. The beast, the plants, even the distant sounds of the jungle. Yet he also felt profoundly alone, aware that the hardest part of the trial might still lie ahead. The Queen's presence dominated the space, her every movement radiating authority and expectation. "What comes next?" he asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. The question seemed to please Sylvaris, her lips curving into a smile that held both amusement and something deeper. Anticipation, perhaps, or acknowledgement of a challenge accepted. "That depends on you," she replied, circling him with deliberate slowness. "You've demonstrated physical capability tempered by wisdom, and the ability to integrate disparate elements into a cohesive whole. Now you must face the ultimate test, one that few beings, regardless of species, are ready to undertake." She paused directly behind him, her voice dropping to a whisper that resonated through his entire being. "The choice of legacy." Elias turned to face her, sensing that this was more than just another phase of the trial. The arena's energy shifted around them, the plants withdrawing slightly to create a private space within the larger construct. Sylvaris raised her hand, and images began forming in the air between them. Not holograms, but living manifestations of memory and possibility. "You stand at a crossroads," she explained, her multifaceted eyes reflecting infinite depths. "Your species seeks to claim its place among the stars, yet remains divided by petty conflicts and short-sighted ambitions. My collective watches, debating whether humanity's potential outweighs its destructive tendencies." She gestured, and the images shifted to show scenes of human history, both triumphs and tragedies. "Your performance today suggests there may be hope for your kind. But hope alone is insufficient." The gravity of her words settled heavily upon him. This wasn't just about his personal survival or even his team's mission anymore. Somehow, impossibly, the fate of human-alien relations might hinge on what happened here, now. The realization made his knees weak, but he forced himself to remain upright, meeting her gaze with determination. "You ask too much," he said, surprising himself with the steadiness of his voice. "One human cannot bear the weight of an entire species' judgment." His words seemed to please her, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Precisely," she agreed, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction. "And yet here you stand, representing not just yourself, but all that your species could become. The choice before you isn't simple. It's primal. Will you accept the burden of leadership, knowing that failure could mean extinction? Or will you retreat to the safety of mediocrity, content to let others decide humanity's fate?" The images swirling around them changed again, showing possible futures, some bright with potential cooperation between species, others dark with conflict and misunderstanding. Elias recognized that these weren't just projections. They were probabilities shaped by quantum possibilities, each path branching from decisions made in this moment. "My warriors," he began, then corrected himself. "Our warriors died believing in something greater than themselves. They sacrificed everything for the chance to prove that humanity could rise above its limitations." His voice grew stronger as he spoke, conviction replacing doubt. "If I walk away now, I dishonor not just their memory, but everything they stood for." Sylvaris's expression softened, though her eyes remained intense. "Then you understand the true nature of strength," she said, stepping closer until mere inches separated them. "It isn't about physical prowess or intellectual superiority. True strength lies in the willingness to embrace vulnerability, to acknowledge weakness while committing to growth. To choose a path knowing that failure is possible, yet moving forward regardless. The air between them crackled with energy, not just from the arena's influence but from something more primal, more fundamental. Elias felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him. Not just human history, but the accumulated wisdom of Silvaras's own civilization. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, he understood that this trial had never been about proving himself to her. It was about proving something to himself, about discovering whether he possessed the qualities necessary to bridge two vastly different civilizations. "You speak of choice," he said, his voice carrying newfound authority. "But what exactly am I choosing? What does it mean to take this path you offer?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Silvaras's smile widened, becoming something both beautiful and dangerous. "That, my dear human warrior, is the question that defines us all," she whispered, her breath warm against his face despite the cool jungle air. "To choose is to accept responsibility not just for oneself, but for the future of both our peoples. Are you ready to make that commitment? To bind yourself to something greater than either of us can fully comprehend?" The enormity of her words struck him like a physical blow. This wasn't just about completing a trial or securing diplomatic relations. Silvaras was offering, demanding, something far more profound. Through their connection, he sensed the depth of what she proposed, the ancient traditions and sacred responsibilities that came with accepting her challenge. As he processed her words, the arena's energy shifted again, responding to the tension between them. The obsidian beast approached, lying down at Silvaras's feet like a loyal companion. The puzzle structure dimmed slightly, its facets now reflecting both their forms merged together in a dance of light and shadow. The choice before him was clear, yet infinitely complex, a decision that would alter not just his life, but potentially the course of two civilizations. Elias felt the weight of destiny settling upon his shoulders, heavier than any armor he'd ever worn. The air vibrated with unspoken promises and ancient protocols, each beat of his heart marking another moment of decision. Silvaras waited, patient yet expectant, her presence commanding response without demanding submission. Between them hung the unspoken truth of what might come next, a future neither could fully predict, yet both seemed willing to embrace. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously as Elias absorbed the full implications of Silvaras's proposal. The Queen's words resonated through him, not just as sound but as pure intent, each syllable carrying centuries of cultural significance he could barely comprehend. Through their connection, he sensed the depth of what she was offering, a bond that transcended mere alliance or treaty. This was a joining of destinies, a fusion of two species' evolutionary paths through the union of their representatives. "You speak of binding ourselves," he said carefully, choosing each word with precision. "But what does that entail? For humans, such commitments carry specific meanings. Marriage, partnership, shared responsibility. Are you suggesting?" He let the question trail off, unwilling to complete the thought aloud. Silvaras inclined her head, her crystalline crown catching the twin sun's light in dazzling patterns. "Your species' concept of mating is remarkably similar to our own highest tradition," she explained, her voice carrying the weight of ancient ceremonies. "When a Kalian chooses a mate, especially a queen selecting her consort, it represents more than personal affection. It signifies the merging of bloodlines, of genetic potential, of cultural exchange. The consequences ripple through generations." The implications hit him like a physical force. This wasn't just about him and Silvaras, it was about creating a bridge between species at the most fundamental biological level. Through their mental link, he glimpsed flashes of Kalian reproductive biology, how their queens carried not just their own genetic material but the distilled essence of their chosen mates, passing along traits to future generations. The idea of contributing human DNA to an alien lineage was staggering, yet somehow deeply compelling. "But the differences between our species," he began, only to be interrupted by Silvaras's quiet laugh. "Differences are meant to be bridged, not feared," she countered, stepping closer until her presence filled his awareness. "Our sciences have long since mastered genetic compatibility. The true challenge lies in the spiritual and cultural integration. Can you, representative of humanity, embrace not just me but my entire civilization?" Can you help forge a new path that honors both our heritages? The arena around them seemed to pulse with anticipation, the bioluminescent plants casting shifting patterns that mirrored the turmoil in his mind. Elias understood now why Silvaris had orchestrated this elaborate trial. It wasn't just to test his worth as a warrior or leader, but to prepare him for the monumental decision she now placed before him. Each challenge had been a step toward this moment, each victory bringing him closer to understanding the depth of what she offered. "And if I accept?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The question carried more weight than any order he'd ever given, more significance than any mission parameter. Through their connection, he felt her response before she spoke, a complex mixture of hope, expectation, and something deeper that defied easy categorization. "You would become more than just my consort," she said, her multifaceted eyes locking onto his with unwavering intensity. "You would be ambassador, genetic pioneer, cultural bridge. Our children would carry the best of both worlds, their very existence a testament to the possibility of unity between species." She reached out, her fingers hovering near his face without touching. "But make no mistake, this is not a decision to be made lightly. Once committed, there is no turning back. The bond between Kalian Queen and chosen mate is permanent, written into our very DNA." The enormity of her words settled over him like a physical weight. Through their connection, he saw visions of possible futures. Hybrid offspring combining human adaptability with Kalian grace, new technologies born from merged scientific traditions, cultural exchanges that enriched both species. But he also saw the challenges: political resistance from both sides, biological complications, the inevitable friction between two civilizations learning to coexist. "What of my people?" he asked, his thoughts racing. "How would humanity react to this union?" His mind conjured images of Earth's governments, the military council that had sent him on this mission, the families of his fallen comrades. Could he really step away from everything he'd known to pursue this unprecedented path? "They would benefit beyond measure," Silvaris responded, her voice carrying absolute conviction. "Through you, they would gain not just access to our technology and knowledge, but a true partnership among equals. Your species stands at a crossroads. Continue struggling alone among the stars, or embrace the opportunity to evolve alongside us." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "But the choice must be yours, freely given. No amount of coercion or pressure could create the genuine bond required." Elias felt the arena's energies shifting again, responding to the tension between them. The obsidian beast lay quietly nearby, its intelligent eyes watching with understanding. The puzzle structure's facets had rearranged themselves into a new configuration, one that seemed to represent the convergence of two distinct patterns into a single, more complex whole. As he considered her proposal, memories of his human life flashed through his mind. The camaraderie of his unit, the missions accomplished and failed, the faces of those he'd lost. Yet overlaying these recollections were new possibilities. A future where humans and Kalians walked together among the stars, where the strengths of both species combined to create something greater than the sum of their parts. "You ask me to abandon everything I've known," he said finally, meeting her gaze with renewed determination. "But perhaps that's exactly what's needed. Perhaps the greatest strength lies not in maintaining the status quo, but in having the courage to transform." His words surprised even himself, emerging from some deep reservoir of understanding he hadn't known existed. Silvaris's expression softened, though her eyes remained intense. "Transformation is the essence of evolution," she agreed. "And evolution is the true measure of strength." She reached out, this time making contact with his cheek. The touch sent waves of energy through him, not just physical sensation but a flood of information. Histories, emotions, possibilities. Between them stretched the threshold of a new era, waiting to be crossed. The decision rested solely with Elias, yet it carried implications far beyond his individual choice. The arena held its breath, the jungle itself seeming to pause in anticipation of his response. Across from him, Silvaris waited, patient yet expectant, her very presence a testament to the magnitude of what she offered.